Welcome to Canada's podcast.
Hi, this is Angela Fay from Canada's podcast and founder of Futureville, where we are imagining and building places worth living for. Today, we are talking to Sushila Ramachandran. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. And who we met in a different environment and shared a lot of different connections. So I'm excited to introduce you to Sushila. But in particular, she is an intuitive and offers intuitive services as well as sound and play experiences. And we're going to talk today a little bit about what is intuition, why is it important, particularly in now more than ever, and really some secrets to helping you tap your intuition as an entrepreneur or a small business owner. Sushila, welcome to Canada's podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So let's first of all talk a little bit about your journey. Where do you live and where are you from and how did you get it? How did you know and discover that you were an intuitive?
Yeah. Ooh, good question. So I'm currently living in Burnaby, British Columbia. I've only been here for just under a year. So I actually grew up in Toronto, but I'm an immigrant. So I came to Canada when I was 6 from where I was born in the Middle East, and my ancestry is South Asian. So I'm from many places. And yeah, so the intuitive aspect. So growing up, I was always a very feeling person, very, as people may say, very sensitive. I always had big feelings, big emotions. And how I would make decisions were always like how I felt about something. And it was just my way of being. But the problem was that I faced a lot of stigma. I faced a lot of like, oh, you're so emotional. Oh, like it's too over the top. Or and I also had a lot of trauma. There were really beautiful aspects to my childhood and very difficult aspects to my childhood as well. So kind of a combination of that, resulted in me having issues with anxiety, and all of that caught up to me in my final semester at university. And just through a really amazing series of serendipitous events, I met someone who called himself a spiritual life coach who offered to help me because at the time I was going through depression. Just as a result of all the things I was experiencing. And I didn't know what a spiritual life coach was, but for some reason I just was like, I feel like I can trust you. So I ended up working with this gentleman for over a year, and he helped me totally transform my life. And we worked through limiting belief systems. He talked about like being an empath or having highly empathic abilities. He talked about intuition, all, angels, guides, all that, the world of the esoteric. And it was fascinating. And it was also really helpful because he really did help me on a path of healing. And I came out of depression and things were better than they had ever been. And what was amazing was that as we were clearing out all the trauma and the things that were, stuck in my body, I started being able to actually tap into my intuition. So, it was really interesting because there was one weekend where this specifically happened, where there was a lot of chatter in my mind. So usually when we're clearing or releasing a limiting belief, our body kind of, let's say our mind starts freaking out because our brains don't actually like change. Our reptilian brain is actually scared of change. So there was all this noise, and by the end of that weekend, because I just allowed it to move, I came into complete stillness. And then inside myself, I heard, "Hello, Sushila," and I was just like,
Who's talking to me?
Who's talking? It's like, basically introducing me to my own intuition, to my own
Wow.
inner voice. And in spiritual terminology, you can call it our higher self, right? Um, so then I started playing with this of like tapping into myself and listening to like, how do I feel about this? Is that like, does this make sense or this makes sense? So I would use that voice to tap in for myself and to make decisions and make choices. Because, our intuition, or what I've come to understand, our intuition is our deep knowing that allows us to live in alignment, that allows us to make choices that are in our highest good. So that's how I tune in. So that's how I use the intuition. But I only thought it was for myself. I didn't really think I could use it to help others necessarily. And then a couple of years further down, I've continued to be on this inner growth, personal growth journey, and continue to releasing things that haven't been serving me in my subconscious. I was invited to a friend's gathering. She had a few people she had invited. I didn't really know any of them. It was so funny. I introduced myself to one of them, and as soon as I started speaking to him, literally within like 10 seconds of just us exchanging names, I got an image flash before my eyes. And it was a vision. It's, so I don't know if you guys have ever seen like That's So Raven, like, she goes like, and then she sees like this big picture montage of something. I think it's more of like a 90s show, but like nonetheless, I had a mini version of that. I'm not that intense when I get visions, but about this person, and I heard a little voice in my ear say, share what you see. And I knew that was my intuition. I was like, okay, let's see what happens. So I shared with this gentleman what I saw, and he just went like white in the face. And he was just like, how did you know this about me? And I was like, wow, that is really curious. I have never had that happen. And so I started playing with it. So I would go to people and be like, hey, I'm learning that I can potentially do this thing where I can know things about you without you telling me. Can I just try to see if I can receive any information about you? And most people are like, yeah, cool, it's whatever. And I did this over and over and over again. And people were fascinated. And soon I was doing readings for people where I would just see what information I could get for them to help them with their life. And that's how I became an intuitive. Then people started paying me, and here I am.
Suddenly you're in business as an intuitive.
Suddenly I'm in business as an intuitive. Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
and the interesting thing that where we met, I think I asked you the question if people can have intuitions about other things like business or inanimate objects, because I have had experiences where I walk into a physical building or place and I immediately feel energy that of what should be in it. And I find it difficult to voice those experiences because, going back to your comment, the stigma of people would say you're woo-woo, and, or whatever the language and the stigma is.
Yeah.
And so I remember asking you the question is it possible to have those kind of experiences? What have you learned over the course of providing services?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting how closed off we can be as a humanity, because the hilarious part is we are all energy. Like science, has proven this, has showed us this. Like we are all like vibrating molecules and atoms. Like we're all literally made of the same stuff. So how could we not be connected to everything that is? Of course we are. But yes, I've had intuitions about spaces. I can feel the energy of spaces, what's positive, what's negative, and even businesses as well. Businesses have a certain energy because everything in our world is an extension of us, right?
Yes.
So it's going to be connected to the energy of those who are creating it. So absolutely you can receive intuitions about all these things because it comes from us, from living, breathing beings, right?
Well, and I would like to introduce an idea, which is, exponential individuals. And exponential, really, whether it is the idea that you can create 10 times the impact of social wealth or happiness in people that you serve if you are in touch with your own intuition and your own,
Yeah.
heart mind connection.
Yes.
And you naturally create flow and play and the things that we talked about. But to me, the essence of starting that process of becoming exponential in business or community builder starts with each individual. Would you agree?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm so with you on the, 10 times the impact because it's really interesting. I had a really in 2019, I had a really exponential year in my business, um, and it was almost like it was happening to me because I was not planning at all for my business to grow as much as it did, and and I and it was there was a little bit of imposter syndrome where it's like, what is happening? I just show up, feel who I want to talk to, and I get a client. Like, what? Um, and it's because I was listening to my intuition. I would always like, okay, where do I feel like going? Oh, I feel like going to this event. Oh, and then I would meet like one or two people and someone would become a client. Or, oh, this person, I keep feeling drawn to talking to this person. I talk to that individual and they would become a client. And not like every single person I speak to becomes a client, but it's like the ones I was drawn to connecting, either they would provide me with a resource, a connection, or would become a client, or we'd be friends. Like something that was in
Right.
alignment for me would always come through, because I would follow that pull, that intuitive draw. So absolutely, because there are many business owners who do all the things, but they're still not making they're not able to generate the revenue, right? Like they're doing the ads, they're doing like all these things um but where are they doing it from? Because they're told that's what they need to do to grow their business. But if they were actually to really go inside and listen to themselves, saying like, what do I feel? What is feels like the next right move to move me forward in my business? It'd be curious to see what would happen then.
When you go to somebody else, a business coach or, an expert,
Mhm.
and you're in search of answers,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then they give you their model, right? And
Mhm.
and you and I both kind of had this whole, yeah, I know, and it
Yeah.
rarely works.
Mhm.
But the magic is that we actually have the answers inside us.
Yeah.
And if we're not looking to them for answers, but we're actually just looking to, external peers or a community that help us connect to that instinct and that intuition that's already there, that's where the magic is.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so, Shashila, you've done the work to, get through the healing and the trauma and a little bit of self discovery. Do you have any specific secrets uh, for yourself or for what you do in the world to help people tap into their intuition?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that I pretty much make it mandatory for everybody that works with me is to meditate. Is to meditate. Here's why. Because when we meditate, we're learning to tune in to ourselves and tune out all the external noise because you can't, like, if you even look at the word intuition, the word in is right at the beginning, so you have to go inside to
Right.
connect to that part of you, right? So meditation for me is absolutely one of the things that will drop you into your body, which is where your intuition lives, your heart, your gut, right?
Mhm.
Um, and the other key thing about meditation is it tunes out, it also clears out all the noise and static that's going on in your body, because intuition speaks through stillness. It doesn't
Mhm.
speak in a doesn't it can be loud when it's really important, but generally on a day-to-day basis it speaks to you through stillness. And if you're in a really chaotic kind of energy, it can be really hard to tune to connect to that inner stillness, right?
Right.
So I meditation is absolutely mandatory. I believe to connect to your intuition. The other thing with connecting to intuition is to play with it. So, just as I did, when I was kind of on this journey of being able to read people, I just kind of went with like, what if? I'm curious. Like, what would happen if I just listened to myself for the next 2 days? For the next 48 hours, what if I don't take any external guidance and just kind of connect to my gut and see what my gut tells me about what I need to do to move my business forward? Right? So just like having little intuitive experiments, like maybe when you're meeting someone new, you can say, "So I'm playing with this idea of intuition. Like, would you be open if I could just see if I can pick up one thing about you
Mhm.
without you telling me anything about yourself?" Right? Um, and see what happens, right? So like just to play with it, try different ways of working with your intuition, because you need practice. Like it's not just going to happen
Right.
overnight. Like it is a muscle that you need to build. So that I think playing is really important as to help build your intuition. And I'd say the third thing that's really important is embodiment.
Mm.
We live in our heads a lot. We've been programmed to live in our heads a lot, but our intuition doesn't live up here. It lives in our body. So things like dance, things like singing, things like just anything that pulls you out of this and into the present moment, because that's where intuition lives in the present moment. So anything that will pull you into your body and out of your mind, and you can do it in a really like, and I'm a big fan of dancing and singing, so I'm proposing those. Or even maybe writing. That's gonna doing things that bring you into your body embodiment. I'd say that's also really, really, really key, because then that way you're training your system to operate from a more intuitive way than cerebral ways. So it becomes easier to connect to your intuition, and you also will just start doing it in a more habitual way rather than having to consciously keep trying to get connected, because you're
Right.
going to change how you're walking in the world. Mhm.
And we talked a little bit about um, play versus suffering, meaning,
Mhm.
you can only be in one state of being at any one time. It's very, very
Mhm.
difficult, which, so
Yeah.
it's a tough time for a lot of people right now in some
Yeah.
ways, uh, with so much change happening in the world here in 2021,
Mhm.
but it's also kind of forced a quietening, right? A
Mhm.
slowing down, which both you and I are experiencing a bit of a shift. And if I
Yes.
can share with the world that, your
Yeah.
mentor said, Shashila, you're meant to impact more people. And I tend to agree. So,
Yeah.
we're all constantly, tapping into our evolution, maybe greater intuitions ourselves.
Yes.
How does it relate? How do you think it relates to business? And
Mhm.
I challenge that because of something that you said earlier,
Mhm.
that really our business and how we show up in the world, really business is just an exchange of value, right? Energy
Mhm.
and value
Mhm.
and currency, and the business format, the business model is really just the holding pattern for how you exchange with people.
Right.
So if you have that belief of that's what business is, how do you think going forward in the future with all of these converging technologies and, new things evolving, where do you think the magic will fit between business and intuition in the future?
Okay. Here is my thought. And this might be kind of controversial, but I'm feeling like being a little controversial, so I'll go for it. I actually think that the way we're growing right now is not sustainable. I actually think we are on the precipice where we are going to be forced to slow down because things are going to start to I think businesses that are built from a space of disconnection are going to fall because it's not going to work for the world that we're going to be coming into. I just don't see it. Our climate is a good example of that. We are already seeing, the impacts of climate change. So business as usual is not going to work I don't think, for much longer. Because there's going to be displacement of peoples. Like there's a lot of things that we don't like to talk about or think about because it's scary, but it's where I believe that's where we're going as a society.
So
yeah, sorry.
Sorry, no, that's perfect. I'm going to ask the question. So if I handed you $1 billion right now, what would you do with it?
Yeah.
And why?
Wow. If I had $1 billion, I would fund as many people as possible to stop whatever they're doing and to actually go on a personal growth journey. I would fund people's personal growth journey. Yeah.
Cool. Where would you take them? What would that look like?
I would probably take them to a meditation, like a center or to centers where they can meditate, where they can learn about belief systems, the subconscious, really begin like feeling their feelings, healing their traumas, because it's when we can do that we can actually be in alignment with our authentic consciousness, which I actually believe is peace. I think when we're not in peace, we're actually not connected to our authentic state of being, because I believe we were brought here to live actually be in peace with ourselves. That's why I think peace actually exists. Whereas right now, I think most of us, myself included, right? Like we live in some form of chaos or some form of inner turmoil because of the things that we have gone through, and because of the systems that we're currently living in that doesn't necessarily support a more slow way, a more connected way of living. Yeah.
And so now we've gone from having some one-on-one intuition clients and sound play experience clients to, taking, let's say, just spitballing here, cost $1,000 to take somebody on a journey. So we've got 10 million people that Sheila's going to serve on finding peace.
Yes.
Peace through peace journey. So that's where I'm putting that on the cork board for our 5-year vision.
Yes. Oh my God, trust me, there will be, it's already happening, right? Like so many people are already like looking to more mindfulness, meditation, sound even, because they're realizing that that's what they need to do. Otherwise it's because when you don't have the access to outer distractions, right? Like what you got left. Thank
Yes.
you. Right? Yeah.
Well, I shared with you, it's my sort of vision to create 1,000 new villages and help, 1 million villages transform into something that's future proof, which in my mind has a lot to do with being more peaceful, easier, more access to abundance. There's really no reason at this point, with the amount of waste and inefficiency there and built into so many of our systems, that we can't turn that and pivot that into, more efficient, more reliant on technology, so that the people themselves can have an elevated quality of life. They're not in suffering over wondering where their food's coming from or their next paycheck. They can actually be creative and innovative and fun and spontaneous most of the time.
Yes.
So I think that is there any last thoughts that you'd like to share with an audience of entrepreneurs?
Trust yourself. Like, trust your inner voice, build that muscle, because that's going to guide you to really creating a business you love. Because if you're not in business, because you love it, then why are you doing it in the first place?
Yes, absolutely. And Shashila, how can people get a hold of you? I'm just going to say that as again, reconnecting with you on this call is I saw you have a Play and Rise virtual event.
Yes.
So I have signed up for that. I have no idea what to expect.
Okay, great. Yeah. So,
but what is that event?
Yeah. So I host monthly complimentary play experiences, where just to give the community an opportunity to sing, dance, draw, write, whatever kind of a play journey I decide to take the group through on the day, to really, again, get you to get reconnected to your power, to your intuition, to your creativity, so you can bring that into your life and business. And it's also not a way for people to experience my play experiences. So if they want to go into a deeper play transformation journey, they'll have a sense for what that looks like. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
And so, that's my idea of how I want to connect with you after today. But and how can other people connect with you? What's the best way?
So you can go to my website, www.sushila.co, and you can just send me a message through the contact form if you want to connect directly. Otherwise, you can join a Play and Rise experience that's completely open to the community. Or you can also book a sound healing experience with me as well. So there's many ways to connect, but my website will show you all of that.
Well, and if just talking to us today isn't enough, I'm just going to finish up by saying Shashila's sort of purpose, if you like, on your website and a lot of your branding is inspiring humanity to awaken through sound and play. Mm-hmm. And I share entirely that motivation and that purpose with you, Shashila. So thank you for joining us today on Canada's podcast. It's great to meet you.
Thank you. So lovely to be here. Thank you.